Hello, algebra students. This is Miss Langenfeld. I hope you guys are doing well. I wanted to go through technically tomorrow's lesson, I would say today's lesson, so that we are ready to go for tomorrow's assignments. So today's lesson is about inputs, outputs, and corresponding tables. So let's go ahead and get started. There we go. Sorry about that. So, lesson objective. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to compute the output for the corresponding input, as well as create a table of the calculated ordered pairs. So, hopefully by the end of this lesson, you will be able to do all of that. So, before we get going into all of that, as a reminder, just talking about what a function is, this is a little bit of review as well as some vocabulary. So, a function is a special relationship where each input has exactly one output. I tried to highlight the important aspects of what a function is, and again, that is that each input has exactly one output. So if you take a look at the picture below, you can see that the number 1 is associated with the letter P, the number 2 is associated with the letter Q, and 3 is also associated with the letter Q. This right here represents a function. Why? Because again, 1, 2, and 3 all have their own individual output, and only one of them. Whereas if you take a look at the next one right next to it, you see that number 1 is associated to the letter P, but you can see right here number 2 is associated to the letter P and Q. That right there, that causes us a problem, and technically does not represent a function. The number 2 must only have exactly one output. So again, well, this right here represents a non-function, whereas the one on the other side does represent a function. Some examples of functions, as you can see, we've got a graph over here. This right here is a linear expression or a linear equation. And you can see that again, for every input, the inputs are the x values, the outputs are the y values. Every input, every x value has exactly one y value. You can see that represented here in this table. And again, you have x, when x is -2, the output is -2. When the input is 0, the output is 0. And then when the input is 2, the output is also 2. So that right there represents a function, as well as this one over here. This is called mapping. And again, number 1 is associated with letter A. Number 2 is associated with letter B. Number 3 is associated with letter C. And then number 4 is associated with letter B. As you can see, numbers 2 and 4 both go to the same output. However, please don't get confused. 2 again only has one output, and 4 also has only one output. So therefore, this still represents a function. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. To calculate outputs, this is the meat and potatoes of our lesson today. We will be given specific functions, and you will also be given specific inputs, and we want to calculate their outputs. So steps. Step number 1, we want to plug in the value of x wherever you see an x in the function. Okay, as you can see over here with this picture, again, the x is going to be our input. We're going to do some calculations, and then the output will be our f of x, or our y value. Step number 2, we're going to follow the order of operations to solve for that input value. Okay, so let's take a look at one example. Right here, we've got our rule, or our function is f of x is equal to x plus 3. All right, so again, our input is going to be whatever we plug in for x, and our output will be our f of x, or our function for when that value does equal a specific x. So we take a look at an example. We have x is equal to -2. So what does our function equal when x is -2? So I go back to step number 1. I'm going to go ahead and plug in -2 for wherever I see an x. All right, so I've got f of -2 is equal to -2 plus 3. So I do kind of order of operations. This one is fairly simple. -2 plus 3 gives us a +1. So when x is equal to -2, f of -2 is therefore equal to 1. All right, so let's take a look at what else we've got coming up. When we put all of this information into tables, again, we have our input, and this represents our x values. We put that into one column, and then we have our output, or in other words, our y values, or our f of x values, and we put that into another column. So I've kind of just plugged in some example x's, or input values, and we just calculated that when x is -2, the output is 1. And I went ahead and did another example for you guys. So when x is -1, I'm going to plug in -1 for wherever you see an x, and it turns out -1 plus 3 gives us a +2. What I would like you guys to do is go ahead and finish this table on your own this evening, and we will go over the correct answers as well as the other examples tomorrow during the lesson to get you guys ready for your in-class assignments. So if you have any questions, please feel free to get in contact with me, and then we will get ready to go for our assignments for tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you all tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day.